I was eager to do a full 30-day cycle of the Transparent Labs mass gainer, primarily because it had high quality carbohydrate sources from sweet potato and oats, as well as it didn't have a lot of artificial sweeteners or sugars. While I loved my experience with this mass gainer and will continue to use it, I do feel it isn't for everybody. Before we dive into the ingredients, I first want to make sure that you guys check out the links in the description below. That's where we will keep tabs on finding the best pricing for products like Transparent Labs mass gainer. We do our best to keep that list up to date to bring you guys the best discounts and codes. So make sure you guys check that out down below. So I added this mass gainer into my diet after a period where I was cutting and I was really low in calories for the goal of dropping body fat. So I wanted to introduce some more calories to increase my performance, as well as help me get some lean muscle mass. In these 30 days, I was following a 6-day-a-week program. So I was training all muscle groups. First day, I would train chest, calves, and some arms. The second day, I would train back and shoulders. And then the third day would be lower body and abs. And I would cycle through that 2 times a week. Every day I was choosing maybe 1 to 2 heavier compound exercises, training in that 5 to 10, 5 to 12 rep range. And then I was choosing 2 to 3, maybe 2 to 4 exercises where I was training in that 8 to 15 or 10 to 20 rep range. Training everything relatively hard, close to failure, still good control and technique to build the muscle. Over the course of those 30 days, my body weight went up about 3 pounds in 4 weeks. Now, I think it's important to point out that I am not a beginner. I am in my late 30s. I have been training for almost 2 decades, so I'm definitely more on the advanced side. So while that may seem a little slower, my goal was to gain body weight slowly so that I could really focus on gaining muscle mass and not really get a lot of the added fat increase that we see when we gain weight too rapidly. So that was my goal, was just to do it nice and slow, to allow myself to train, perform well, but not be overly stuffed with calories that I'm also starting to put on body fat excessively. So all mass gainers, the whole goal is to increase caloric intake, specifically through carbohydrates and protein. Now, we look at Transparent Labs mass gainer, we're getting the protein is coming from grass-fed whey concentrate. Concentrate has slightly more carbohydrates than isolate, which is not a deal breaker here because we want to get extra calories, and extra carbohydrates is not an issue. It's got 3 different types of carbohydrates in here. So it has tapioca maltodextrin, which is very fast acting. It has sweet potato flour and oat flour. So those 3 kind of make up a good combination of carbohydrate sources to give you good fast acting energy, but also make sure it's easily digestible. Now, when we're trying to gain lean muscle mass, we like to put ourselves in a caloric surplus, and we want to make sure that we have 3 to 7 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram per day. Now, I know it's a big range. Using a product like this can really increase that caloric intake strictly by getting the carbohydrates up. So that's a big key here that we want to work on. Another additive that I really enjoy about this product is that it threw in creatine monohydrate. So each serving has 3 grams of creatine. So if you don't know what creatine is a very potent substrate that the body uses to produce fast energy. While we can get it from all natural sources of meat, it's in any muscle tissue. So whether you eat steak or chicken, you are going to get some creatine. If you're training hard, it is good to supplement with that because you can always keep your own creatine levels topped off. And lastly, the main ingredient, or I should say lack of ingredients in here, is that the sweetener component in this is stevia. Other mass gainers will just pump in other forms of sugar or other chemicals that will just help it taste better and preserve it. But this here is just stevia. There's no artificial colorings, no artificial sweeteners, which is a big pro for me. I want to make sure I know exactly what's going into my body. Number 1, what I liked about this product, super clean. As the name suggests, Transparent Labs, very clean in terms of the ingredient list. That's what I look for. I want to see minimal ingredients because I'm looking just strictly for carbohydrates, protein, and creatine. Not a whole extra fillers and like that. The second thing I liked about this is that it was adequate calories to place myself and most people in a caloric surplus. So the macronutrient breakdown was great with that. Typically, we're looking to get anywhere from like 3 to 1, 4 to 1 grams of carbohydrate to protein. This delivered about 2.5 to 1. So pretty adequate there. Gave me a lot of calories as well as carbohydrates. Next, I really do like the sources of fast-acting carbohydrates in this. You can get carbs from anything, but in a mass gainer, I'm looking for fast-acting because I'm typically having it during my workouts or around my workouts. I want to get the carbohydrates back into my system, back into the muscle tissue. So that was a great mix there. It was also very easily digestible with the oat flour, sweet potato flour, and the tapioca maltodextrin. And then lastly, what I really liked about this product was that it was super mixable. This mixed up great, and it was very velvety and smooth texture, whether I mix it in my shaker, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, 45 seconds with water and milk, or if I had it in the blender. I do want to highlight something that I did not find to be too enjoyable. And it really was only one thing, and this is maybe not even on the product itself, but more on maybe my flavor profiles, is that when I was reviewing the sweet vanilla, I just found the flavoring to be slightly off. And that is typically what I find with most vanilla flavor stuff. I'm not a big fan of it. It just tasted a little bit almost reminding me of like a buttered popcorn. I'm not quite sure if that makes sense, but that's something that was a drawback for me. It was still palatable enough that I could drink it. It was fine. Personally, if you're somebody who likes vanilla, you might like that flavor, but I personally liked the chocolate. Number one, nutritional label transparency. I'm giving this a 5. This thing is got minimal ingredients. I mean, I'm looking right now, maltodextrin, grass-fed whey, cocoa powder, coconut milk powder, MCT oil, creatine, salt, oat flour, sweet potato flour, stevia. Very, very minimal, very crystal clear, exactly what I wanted. The next thing I like to look at is the percent of calories to protein. I'm gonna also give it a 5. Wanna make sure I'm getting roughly around 30% of my total calories is coming from protein sources, and this comes right at around 30. So the third criteria, the carb to calorie ratio, I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm looking to get around 3 to 1. 3 grams of carb for every 1 gram of protein. This product here came in just around 2.5 to 1. It's not necessarily a drawback, especially if you're gonna have this with stuff like milk. Milk has also some carbohydrates, so it might nice that up there. But all in all, this delivered a lot of great calories, a lot of great carbohydrates and protein. While it was slightly off on the 3 to 1, it will fit most people's needs, especially if you're gonna have it in a diet that is just well balanced with carbohydrates in general, or if you mix this with milk. So the next one is gonna be taste. I gave this a 4.5. And the reason of that is because the chocolate, I rated a 5 out of 5. And the sweet vanilla, I rated a 4 out of 5. I did dock that a little bit because I felt the taste slightly off. But again, most vanilla products I'm just not a fan of, so I couldn't be too harsh on it because I think it's more of a me thing than an it thing. Mixability, 5 out of 5. Full disclaimer, when I was mixing this, I was mostly doing it with water. And when you have clean products like this that don't use emulsifiers, sometimes what can happen is you get it to separate where the contents might separate towards the bottom of the glass. But honestly, I didn't get that with this with water when I was shaking it in my shaker. I didn't get it with milk. I didn't get it in the blender. So I was really impressed with that. The next criterion is gonna be satiety, or how full it kept me. I gave this a 5 out of 5 because I could drink this at the gym on the way home. I get home, shower up, and I was able to eat a regular meal, almost like I didn't even eat this. So that's kind of the whole point of the mass gainer, is to find a product that you can put into your daily life, get extra calories in, and not feel full. So the last criteria, which probably most people are waiting for, is cost. So I had to give it a 3 out of 5 on that. It came in at around 71 cents per 100 calories, which is definitely higher than the market norm, which is right around 53 cents per 100 calories. But the reason I still think this is worth it to me is because I can 100% justify you're getting exactly what you need from the best sources and nothing else. So I have to give it a 3 out of 5 just based on how it stacks up against the pricing in the market. But I do feel that overall value, if you're somebody who can justify that to yourself, this should not be a deal breaker. For somebody who's struggling to get enough calories in and wants to know exactly what's in their supplement. If you're somebody who is already getting enough calories, carbohydrates, protein through food sources, then you probably don't need this product. If you don't want the extra calories and carbohydrates from this mass gainer, but you want all the high quality grass-fed whey, make sure you guys check out the video from one of my colleagues who goes over the Transparent Labs grass-fed whey protein powder in the link below.